We are living in a period of uncertainty like we have never witnessed in our entire life. There are no more questions than answers. We don't know when there is going to be a cure or a vaccine. We don't know whether there's going to be a social unrest because of all the lockdowns. We don't know when all of us will start traveling like what we used to a few months ago. But one thing is certain because of this crisis. Digital transformation is accelerating. In fact, it's going to continue to accelerate across companies and countries. Over the last few weeks, we have been analyzing what are the key digital use cases that organizations and countries are going to adopt and accelerate, and which of these can be conceptualized, built, and operated from the global centers of excellence. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll share some of the key insights from our study and talk about and how we all can collaborate to make some of these use cases to life. Let us start with how our daily lives have changed because of the COVID-19 crisis. For that, we analyzed the personas of a few key users. We took some of you in examples. One is a VP of engineering, second is a CIO, and third is a VP of sales. Let's take the life of a head of engineering. You start the day with a Zoom call with your peers across the world. Then the ones who are fitness conscious are using the Peloton bike for a quick workout. Then you get into this dreaded product roadmap discussion where the CEO wants you to accelerate some of the product roadmap, but at 70% of the cost. While you're wondering how you're going to do this in 70% of the cost, the time for your daughter's Google classes started. You got to get her up and running on the Google class. When you do it, you're coming into your seat and starting to work. Your friend gate is calling you saying, hey, big basket delivery has come and pick it up. You do that, you come back, you do a Zira review to look at the productivity of your teams, wondering how good is your own productivity. Then you get through the day, you get to the evening, and you're looking at getting back to your global teams and having a conversation, an informal session with your global peers across the world on how is it to work from home. Similarly, look at the CIO's life, a day in CIO's life. Unlike an engineering leader, CIO also has to manage external vendors. And CIO is starting the day with negotiation with vendors to consolidate the number of vendors, to reduce cost, as well as improve business continuity. There is a daily ping from the CEO saying, hey, what is happening with the cybersecurity initiatives because of work from home? You're reviewing your cybersecurity status on Zscaler. Then you're going ahead with your entire day, and you're looking at in the end of the day, you're contacting your physician on Teledoc, and you end the day by monitoring your factories across the world using your Rockwell automation systems. Take the life of head of sales. Sales leaders have built their career over the last several years based on relationship, one-on-one, face-to-face relationship over the last several years. Now suddenly they got to sell online. And many of them are going through online classes to be able to understand how to use analytics in driving sales. How do you drive virtual demos when driving sales? And sales leaders today are able to talk to customers across the world in a single day because they don't have to travel. I was in discussion with one of the sales leaders. He said that they have better insights on the customers in Asia and Europe than any time in the career because they're able to directly talk to these customers instead of getting insights about these customers through the sales reps in these locations. And if you abstract in all of these trends in how our daily life is progressing, we can come up with 5 key trends which is driving those. Let us get into these 5 use cases in a little bit of detail. First is TeleX or Tele-Everything. This is all about providing remote services or experiences across industry segment, be it telemedicine, be it tele-education, or telesports. Imagine millions of people sitting in front of the computer and watching other people play video games. That's the only source of live sports available today, and that is exponentially growing. Contactless commerce includes delivery of health supplies, goods, essential retail, using contactless payments as well as delivery mechanisms. Not just retail companies, even FMCG companies like Pepsi are building the direct-to-consumer channels because they don't want to rely purely on the physical retail channels. Third is intelligent workplace. Intelligent workplace is all about digitally empowering both your frontline workers as well as back office workers. This includes optimal safety, security, collaboration, innovation, and productivity in your workplace. And the next is digital thread. Digital thread is all about linking your conceptualization, development, production, and support using digital twins. Next generation governance. We have talked about smart cities for a long time, but now there is a sense of urgency among governments across the world to adopt smart cities and smart governance. Thereby, they gain better insights into their citizens, they're able to launch new services, and truly make their cities pandemic-proof. All these use cases require hybrid cloud and intelligent ID infrastructure, intelligent security and compliance, intelligent automation, and intelligent applications. We will dig a little bit deeper in some of these areas over the next few minutes. There has been a radical transformation in healthcare over the last few months. Been moving from in-person healthcare to telehealthcare. Just in the last year, only 11% of the US consumers were using telemedicine. But that number accelerated over the last few months to over 50%. The market size has grown from $4 billion and going to grow to about $25 billion by 2021. Leading hospitals such as Cleveland Clinic witnessed not more than 1 to 2% virtual patients in Jan 2020. This skyrocketed to 50% virtual consultations by February 2020, which further rose to 70% in March and 80% in April 2020. This has been partly possible due to deregulation by the governments. Over 20 different states in the US is allowing telemedicine, and they've approved over 80 new telemedicine services just in the last few months. And few months ago, if a doctor wants to provide telemedicine, they have to come to a regulated institute to provide virtual consultation. Not just that, they have to provide virtual consultation only with patients whom they have seen at least once in the last 3 years. Most of this regulation have been taken away with, and even the US federal government is pushing Medicare and Medicaid to foster additional telemedicine. Because of all of this, the venture capital investment has grown 5 times just in the last few months. Telemedicine companies such as Amwell have raised over $200 million in the last few weeks. And not just venture capital investors, you also see private equity investors very active in this area. KKR owns over 20 different healthcare companies across med devices, pharma, providers, as well as in health tech. And it is easily possible for them to integrate all of these companies together to create a massive healthcare company. And also you will see healthcare in the US moving into a hub and spoke model where the large hospitals like Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic acquiring smaller hospitals across and enabling them to telehealth and having a central mechanism for them to manage all of these. It is possible you're going to see very large healthcare companies coming as we come out of this crisis. The last few weeks I've witnessed a 10 years worth of changes in telemedicine, and we're just getting started. Next is teleeducation. COVID-19 had impacted education across 185 countries. Over 1.5 billion students across the world have been locked down from the classrooms, and many of them have been forced to adopt remote technologies. Asia has been leading this, with China and India moving over 750 million students to remote education. There are platforms like Baiju, which already raised over $400 million last year, are looking to raise several more $1 million in funding. There has been a significant increase in teleeducation funding just in the last few months, and over 75% of that funding is gone to India and China. And not just K-12 education, even university education is getting deeply disrupted. In US, because of easy availability of credit, student loans, the cost of education has exponentially increased in the last few years. It costs over $100,000 per year for an undergrad student. Now the students are questioning, if I'm going to take remote education, why do I need to pay my university $100,000 a year when I can subscribe to a good Coursera course? And there are different possibilities which will come out of this. The big brand universities, be it Harvard, Stanford, IIT, or IIMs, always had a demand-supply gap. Lot more students want to go to these universities than the number of physical seats possible. And they're leaving a lot of money on the table. Today, they can move into a virtual classroom where they can enroll as many students as they want to pay Harvard or Stanford, but make the graduation stringent so the people who follow and who can be certified by these universities are the only ones who graduate. Or we can also be getting into an era of superstar professors, similar to YouTube stars and Instagram stars. It is foreseeable that great professor, the professor in machine learning, could have 1 million students following the classes, and they can monetize it using subscription and advertisements. And telemedicine is really going to change how students across the world are going to get trained. Online education has brought out the digital divide in the society. Poor students don't have access to computers, tablets, or reliable internet connectivity. And the governments across the world has to work in an urgent manner to solve this issue. Otherwise, we are going to further increase the inequalities in the societies across the world. The next area is digital workplace. Over 65% of the US population is working from home. And even though we are all comfortable working from home, the next part of the future is for people to come back to work in a more secure manner. There are a lot of innovations happening across the world to get people back to work in a very secure manner. When you enter the office building, you will have to get screened by an infrared fever screening system. A few steps ahead, your elevator system will be equipped with a holographic keyboard or by your mobile app to select the floor of your choice. You might be allowed to enter only based on facial recognition in countries that allow the technology. Once you are on your floor, employee guidance app will allocate the seat and provide the best road so that you can maintain social distance. Occupancy will be continuously tracked using sensors and cameras. Your water dispenser and coffee machine will be touchless. The tap in the washing room will time you to check if you're washing your hands for 20 seconds. If not, maybe you won't be allowed to exit the washroom. The companies that are not impacted by COVID-19 might even redesign the office with more office room and higher square feet per person. Offices will be sanitized by robots and UV lights regularly. Your HVAC system will be upgraded to ensure they are able to filter out bacteria and viruses, as well as maintain the temperature and humidity that reduces the potential spread of any virus. Your meetings might not be the same. Even though some face-to-face meetings will come back, most meetings, even when you are in office, could be virtual, as it allows better interaction and provides equal opportunity for everyone in the meeting to contribute. We are, in fact, going to walk into the office of the future, which is being pulled forward by a few years. The next part is digital thread. The way we conceptualize, build, manufacture, and support products is fundamentally changing. Think of designing the next generation products. The CAD engineers are used to having high-performance computers next to their desktops to design these products. But during the crisis, when people had to work from home, the only teams which are able to work from home were the teams which had that CAD as well as simulation software on the cloud. And in fact, companies like PTC has spent over $450 million to buy Onshape, which is a cloud-native CAD product. And for example, one of the global center of excellence and large auto OEM had their employees work from home only because they had the entire CAD and simulation software on a private cloud instead of the high performance compute which sits on the desktops. Digital manufacturing is a key part of digital thread. Digital manufacturing includes AI, AR, 3D printing, and IoT. Take an example of AR. Companies like Airbus are enabling their shop workers using AR glasses so that they are provided guidance for things like airplane fuselage assembly and also showcasing where the faults in the assembly lies. 3D printing has truly come of age in the last few months. Because of global supply chain constraints, companies are using 3D printing for mission critical product manufacturing. In fact, 75% of the top 20 global manufacturers are using 3D printing for some part of PPEs. IoT-based monitoring is helping companies prevent downtimes and increase throughputs. For example, 1/4 of 30,000 assembly robots in General Motors are being remotely monitored, and that has helped them reduce the number of vehicle assembly failures over the last few months. The third part of digital thread is digital field services. Over 40% of the digital services includes the field technician to visit the customer in person. During the COVID crisis, they were not able to visit the customer. And thanks to the digital twins, using digital twins, they're able to understand the issues and diagnose the problem remotely. And we believe the digital field services will extend to one level more, where it will enable customers to use self-service, where there is a central team of experts which are guiding their customers step by step to resolve those issues. Really, this is going to optimize the overall turnaround time for services of mission-critical products in the market. There is an opportunity for us to step up the effort in our smart city initiatives so to make our cities pandemic-proof. There are several interesting ways in which technology could be used in our cities. One is drone corridor. It could be a regulated fly zone where these drones can be used for surveillance by the government for things like social distancing or used for delivery of essential goods. For example, Singapore is using robot dogs to warn and prompt people who are not following social distancing. Contact tracing app is being adopted by over 30 different countries across the globe. And they're using it to trace and isolate COVID-infected patients. And China and Korea have successfully used that to reduce the pandemic in their countries. Telemedicine stations nearby could provide quality as well as professional care to citizens in their cities. The big question, though, is with remote work possibilities, is there a need for us to further urbanize? For example, global centers of excellence, which has 2 or 3 hubs in India, could potentially have 20 different hubs. In these hubs, they can attract talent who are otherwise reluctant to move into cities. This could help you increase your diversity of talent in your companies and also provide better business continuity planning. So for us, the big thing to think about is great that we are going to have smart governance and smart cities. But the question is there also time for us to drive reverse urbanization? These digital use cases create a lot of interesting possibilities for global centers of excellence. Many of these technologies can be conceptualized, built, and operated from global centers of excellence. A lot of interesting possibilities, and we believe that global centers of excellence can play an active role in building and accelerating adoption of these technologies. We analyze the use cases across 2 dimensions: the potential ecosystem capability to develop the technologies, as well as the market opportunity in Asia for these technologies. Clearly, contactless payment, digital collaboration, tele-entertainment, workforce automation, smart facilities, and reimagination of urbanization are areas that global centers of excellence can take leadership and help access the large Asia market. We did the same analysis on various enabling technologies. There are significant opportunities across semiconductor design, hybrid cloud, security, and automation. The key for the GCOE leaders is to quickly analyze the use cases, identify the opportunities where they can lead, create business case to convince the global stakeholders, build the right capabilities, and execute. This is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for GCOEs to drive transformation of their organization, to help the organization become anti-fragile and gain market share during COVID and post-COVID crisis. Thank you.